Hello, Church School families. This is the third Sunday of Easter, and this week we are going to continue our series from Godly Play called Knowing Jesus in a New Way. On the first Sunday of this series, we talked about the three Marys who had gone to the tomb to bring spices to Jesus' body. It was Mary, the mother of James, Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Mary Magdalene who led the way. They wondered how they would get into the tomb. But when they got there, the stone that had been blocking the entrance had been moved away. And inside, all that remained was the white linen that Jesus' body had been wrapped in. They ran to go tell the others, and many did not believe them. But Peter and John went to the tomb, and Mary ran after them. When they got there, they too saw that it was empty. Mary remained, weeping, and two men, all dressed in white, came up to her and said, "Woman, why are you weeping?" Through her tears, she said that the body was gone, and she wanted to know where Jesus was. They said, "Jesus is gone. Tell the others to meet him in Galilee." She continued to weep, and she heard another voice say again, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She turned and thought it must have been the gardener. Then he said, "Mary." And when he said her name, she knew it was Jesus. She must have reached out to touch him because he said, "No, I have risen, but I have not yet ascended." Then he was gone. Last week, we remembered the two disciples who made their way to the town of Emmaus, which is about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They had been shaking their head, thinking back on all that had happened over the last 3 days. The cross, the empty tomb. They had so many questions about what it all meant, when a stranger walked up beside them that they had not noticed before. And the stranger asked them, "What are you talking about?" And they said to him, "Are you the only one who does not know what happened over the last 3 days?" They began to talk to him about the cross and the empty tomb and about all of their questions about what it all meant. And he looked at the disciples and said to them, "You are foolish and slow of heart. Listen to me." And he began to open up the scriptures to them. He said, "Do you remember when we were trapped in Egypt and Moses led us through the waters into freedom?" He said, "Do you remember when we were trapped in our freedom in the desert and God gave us the 10 best ways to guide us?" And he said, "Do you remember when we were trapped in exile and the prophets said a child would lead us and that someone would come and suffer and die so we truly could be alive?" By this time, they were in Emmaus. The miles had passed by quickly as they talked with the stranger. The stranger was going to continue on, but the disciples invited him to stay for supper with them, and he accepted their invitation. When they sat down to have a meal at the inn, the stranger took the bread and gave thanks to God and broke it and gave it to them. And when he did this, they knew that it was Jesus. On this Sunday, We remember when the disciples were gathered in a room with the doors locked shut. They were afraid that the soldiers would come and take them just as they had done to Jesus. And then they heard a voice that said, "Peace be with you." At first, they thought he was a ghost, but then he talked to them and showed them his wounds. He ate fish with them, and he opened up the scriptures to them. Then he said, "Peace be with you," and he was gone. Now Thomas was not there that night, so the disciples told them what had happened the next day. He did not believe them. He had doubts in his bones. But why wouldn't he? Their minds were stretching and stretching to know Jesus in this new way. He said, "I won't believe until I see him and touch him myself." 8 days later, they were in that room with the doors shut, and Thomas was there. And they heard someone say, "Peace be with you." And Jesus walked straight to Thomas and held out his hand and said, "Touch me." Thomas fell to his knees and said, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus looked at him for a while and said, "You believe because you see." Then he looked at the circle and said, "Blessed are those who haven't seen and yet believe." I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye.